Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I wanted to update a guide that I did long ago about League Start economic strategies for a trade league in Path of Exile. But I wanted to make this be one that's a bit more specific to the Heist League, so there'll be a fair bit of discussion of Heist League mechanics in it, but also to just generally update why it's a really big advantage to be able to play on day one and push a long way through the game on day one. And discuss a few of the options that you've got for doing that. So firstly, I thought I'd discuss why day one of a league is such a big deal. And the key thing here is that everyone is on a level footing. There's no accumulations of currency in the economy. And likewise, there's basically no one that is sitting on, well, there's actually no one that is sitting on a big pile of powerful items. What this means is that there's overwhelming demand for powerful items and basically no supply. And this means that prices on items can be really high. So to take a couple of examples from recent leagues, let's start with one of the most powerful unique armors in the game, and that is Impulse's Broken Heart. Now this doesn't fit every single build, but have a look at the pattern of its price throughout the Harvest League. Towards the end of the league, non-linked Impulses wound up around the 20 chaos mark. But have a look at just how lucrative it was to have one drop for you earlier than in the league. So if you were to have found one on June 25th, which was about the 5th or 6th day of the Harvest League, you would have been looking at 600 chaos in value that you picked up. That's for one that is not linked. You're not even needing to 6-link it. And the reason for that is that there were just more people in the league that had the currency to purchase an Impulses, and that were desperately chasing one in order to speed up their clear speed, build up their character to be more powerful, than there were of this item around. And now, what if we take a still powerful, but less expensive because it's less rare item? And let's have a look at the same chart for Belly of the Beast. Now this is for a Belly of the Beast with no links on it. And you'll notice that it popped up to around the 10 chaos mark early on in the league, before sort of crashing and never recovering. A 5-link Belly of the Beast tells a different story. It's still fundamentally the same overall trend, but the 5-link Belly of the Beast was worth quite a bit in the first few days of the league. Then it falls sharply, and then it falls much more sharply again and never really recovers. So it winds up that towards the end of the league, they're in the 10, 12, 13 range, whereas earlier in the league, they're selling for 24, 25, 26 chaos at the earlier on. And you can take advantage of this. So the key thing is that some of the new build defining items that are being introduced with the Heist League, some of these will be super common, but that information won't be widely known. So if you do get these items early on, they're going to sell. But if you get them later on, they may just be so common that you wouldn't even bother picking them up. Items that would be 2 to 5 chaos late in the league can sell for an Exalt or more very early on. The other thing that's important about early in the league is that it's much more common for there to be players who have the vast majority of their wealth in the league concentrated in one very lucky drop. So, for instance, someone who is running through Act 7, kills a monster, gets lucky, Exalted Orb. And they may be in a situation where they've got 5 Chaos Orbs, 2 Regals, 15 Jeweler's Orbs, 3 Fusings, and then they've got this one Exalt that's worth more than everything else that they've got in the league at that time. Now that player may decide that their best strategy, and I wouldn't fault them for doing this, is to sell that Exalted Orb for Chaos, and then use those Chaos Orbs to purchase a Tabula Rasa, or perhaps 9 of the Vanity Divination card, get themselves some powerful items that can turbocharge them through the mid-game and into early endgame. Lots of people will be doing that. And there will be more people that have unwanted Exalted Orbs they're looking to sell early in the league than will be the case at any other point later on. The same is true for other valuable items that don't do anything on their own. A good example of that is the Doctor. Another good example, 7 Years Bad Luck. A couple of divination cards that will go up tremendously in value over a league. A Doctor can be as little as 4 Exalts early on. And keep in mind that this is at a point where Exalted Orbs may only be 45 to 50 Chaos Orbs, so a Doctor's only 180 to 200 Chaos Orbs, whereas later in the league, a Doctor can easily hit 8 Exalts in a lot of leagues, and maybe even more than that. and that'll be at a point where exalts might be 170 chaos. 7 years bad luck goes up even more. This divination card can be as little as 30 chaos early in a league, and towards the end of the league it can easily be an exalt and a quarter. So if you have any goals in Heist that require a lot of currency, taking advantage of this day one opportunity is the best way to set yourself up. Going hard and smart on day one can result in you getting 10 to 20 times as much wealth as an equal amount of gameplay would later on in the league. So I want to start with 5 universal tips. These are basically things that apply no matter which niche you decide to focus on. Firstly, don't be in any public chat channels while you're leveling. You want to level fast. We'll get to a bit more on why later, but the key thing is you want to be one of the first people getting the bellies of the beast, the middle tier unique items like that. You want to be one of the first people getting the big drops like the impulses, so that you can sell them to the very top end endgame players when they're desperate to get one and they know exactly what to do to get currency early. When it's a seller's market, you want to be the person that's got the items when it's a seller's market. So really, I think your goal is you want to be one of the first 5,000 maps if at all possible, but you definitely want to be in the first 50,000 maps. And chat channels will slow you down because they're distracting. Second tip, pre-plan your build. You can do this when the patch notes come out, and if you're trying something that's experimental or that revolves around a new skill, then have a very well worked out and fleshed out backup plan that you know how you can respec into it. So for instance, if I decide to league start as a Crackling Lance Assassin and it turns out to be awful, then my backup will be an Ignite Proliff Trickster or a Contagion Essence Drain Trickster. Those are 2 builds. One of them I've played twice before. The other one, there's 1,000,001 guides around it. Have a loot filter that is optimized for day one of a league. So every 5-link armor is an opportunity on day one of a league. Whereas later on in a league, as long as you don't need a 5-link yourself for personal use, I usually recommend that by about day 5 or 6 of a league, you remove 5-linked items from your loot filter entirely. However, on day 1, a 5-link armor will sell for 10 chaos early in the day and then 3 to 4 later on. Likewise, leveling uniques are worth something early in the game, even the ones that supply quickly outstrips demand on. Gems like Val Heist, these are actually good drops on day 1 of a league, even though again it's something that will not sell after the couple of days. Likewise, you want to pick up divination cards for starter uniques as well. On the flip side, there's a couple of currency items that collapse in value at league start. Chaos Orbs, Jeweler's Orbs, Regal Orbs, and Fusings. These will fall, and it'll be a calamitous drop in the first few days. So you'll find that where an Exalted Orb buys 50 Chaos Orbs on day 1, when Chaos Orbs are worth something, by day 10 of a league, an Exalted Orb's going to buy 180 Chaos. And as a result, Chaos Orbs have lost a huge percentage of their value, something like 73% of their value there. Jeweler's Orbs and Fusings fall further than that, as do Regals. These currencies can lose 85% of their value. So what you want to do is trade them for things that increase in value, especially as the last thing you do before logging off. So if you've had a good play session and you're ready to call it quits for the day, then what you should do before you log off, you should have a look at your Chaos Orbs, and if it's more than 50, you want to convert them into things that will be worth more when you log back on. Likewise, if you've got more than about 15 Regals, or more than about 30 or 40 Fusings, or more than about 100 or 200 Jeweler's Orbs, you'll also want to convert those into currencies that will stand the test of time. Some things that you might want to consider purchasing with your Chaos Orbs at this point and your lesser currencies. There's a couple of mediocre choices, and these are Exalted Orbs, Exalted Shards, and Exalted Orb Divination cards like the Saint's Treasure, the Hoarder, and Abandoned Wealth. All of these will increase in value against the Chaos Orb over time, but they'll keep the same fundamental value because the Exalt's the most important currency in the game. The better choice is expensive consumables that people deem too precious to use early on. but not ones that people use as a store of wealth like Exalted Orbs. So this is things like Gilded Scarabs, Pure Breachstones, Delirium Orbs, Delirious Maps, as well as pieces or fragments of best-in-slot items. So this will be Nurse Divination cards or Doctor Divination cards if you're wealthy enough to. Sustenance and Gifted of Asenath Divination cards, which are very rare early on, but they do exist. People do spike these cards, and they will be worth more later on in the league. And especially pieces of Mirrors of Kalandra. So that is a 7 years bad luck divination card at the cheaper end, whereas if you've got a bit more wealth behind you, you might want to try and purchase a Mirror Shard on day one. Mirror Shard on day one is that's something that only a couple of thousand people will have the currency to buy that, but it is possible to get there if you play determinedly. The last tip that I want to make, though, sort of runs a little bit against that, and that is don't be afraid to overpay for gear early if you will amortize this cost by clearing faster. So for instance, in the Harvest League, I paid 27 Chaos for a Tabula Rasa early. I bought a bunch of Vanity Divination cards. I paid 3 Chaos for each of them. Now later on in that league, the Tabula Rasa that I got, I then went and resold it, well, just for a Divine Orb, which was only 15 Chaos. So in theory, it looks like I've lost 12 Chaos there. However, the Tabula Rasa repaid itself many times over by speeding up my early clearing. And as a result, I was able to loot more loot than I otherwise would have. And you can take this further too. You know, you don't need to limit yourself to 27 Chaos for a Tabula. You can spend an Exalt on a Corrupted 6-link early on. If it's got the right colors on it and it's got a few stats, that's a pretty good buy, even though eventually you probably will end up vendoring it for a Divine Orb. If it speeds up your mapping for 30% and you keep it on for long enough to do 300 maps, then that's like that purchase has done 90 maps for you. That's a huge boost in your clearance, in your clearing of maps and your loot acquisition, and has easily paid for itself. And that is why the people early on in the league will pay 600 Chaos Orbs for an Impulses, because they know, at least the people that buy it early in the league, those people know full well that they're going to get that 600 Chaos back and more, because the Impulses is going to speed up their loot acquisition so much. So now, those are tips that apply in any league. Let's move to the big questions that come up when we're talking about the specifics of the Heist League. So your first major decision is going to be whether you want to focus on new content or familiar content. And this is a big choice. I'm not going to express a recommendation here. I want to go through both options in some detail and leave the decision up to you. You should be able to succeed with either choice, unless there are major problems with the league. So for instance, the Delve League, when it came out, it was so badly bugged that basically Delves were unplayable. That took a few days to fix, and until it was fixed, essentially your only option was to acquire wealth through mapping. However, Delve is a pretty special case in terms of being the 3.x league that was the most disastrous at its launch. Legion was another one that had a lot of technical issues with the actual Legion monoliths themselves early on, but even there it was entirely feasible to run them. It was just that some people's PCs would have major dramas every time they opened up a Legion monolith. However, you should pick your build, you should tailor your choice of build around the choice that you're making here. So if you're going for heist content, you will probably want to watch the heist introduction video again several times, and you will want to rethink how those mechanics influence your build. Were this a league like Betrayal, you would probably want a boss killer, where you're going to be encountering multiple bosses in every single map. But with it being a league where you're going to have to move under pressure, you're going to have to, and one of the biggest focuses is escaping from the heist safely, you're going to want to have a build that's perhaps sturdy, that combines being sturdy with good clear speed, but doesn't necessarily seem to need all that much of a focus on boss killing. So that would be the way that I'd think about building around heist. So a build like a Cyclone, a champion Cyclone build would be a good option, I believe, for the heist content. So let's talk firstly about familiar content first, and then come back to the questions of heist content later. So going with familiar content doesn't mean that you won't try the heist mechanics as you go, just that you will spend a large majority of your day one playtime using tried and tested strategies. So there's 7 main ways that I believe you can go with familiar content for currency generation on day one. I won't go into all of them in depth, except to add that I do not recommend competing with Eternal Labyrinth carry services. The reason that I say this is that so many people offer day one carry services in the Eternal Labyrinth that the prices have gotten really low. Eternal Labyrinth itself can be profitable, but it's actually generally better to run it 3 times as fast by yourself than it is to try and carry people through it with you and have them get lost, have them be on a different server and then die because of some trap that they didn't see. All these sorts of things make Eternal Labyrinth carrying more of a dicey option in my belief. By all means, though, carry your friends through it. If you get talking to someone while you're leveling, carry them through it if they need it. But I don't think that you should see actually getting people to pay your character to carry them through the labyrinth to be a particularly lucrative option anymore. All of these strategies revolve around getting to maps super fast, as we were saying before. The advantage to being in the first few thousand people into maps are enormous. So proven strategies for familiar endgame content. The first one is just running and grinding the hell out of low tier maps super fast, focusing on currency drops. You want to elk and go your maps with a movement speed spec build that has extraordinary damage projection. A couple of examples of this are Tornado Shot, Essence Drain Contagion, Trickster Ignite Fireball. All these sorts of builds are ones that can do damage to enemies all around them and can do it very quickly. It's generally right to do the unidentified chaos recipe until chaos orbs fall below 1/75th of an exalt, and after that never to do it again. This is something that will kick in on day one of the league, maybe about 24 hours after league start is when Chaos Orbs will fall under 1/75th of an exalt. And again, it's just one of those opportunities that is time gated. Essentially what happens here is that the number of Chaos Orbs entering the economy is actually pretty low early on the first day. People use them as a universal trade standard. So there's a lot of demand for them as people just want to conduct trades, and it's sort of expected that they'll do their trades in Chaos Orbs. But people will be looking to get Chaos Orbs by the recipe until you get to a point where bot cheaters start really dominating the market. It takes a bit longer for bot cheat accounts to get to the point that they're running chaos recipes regularly, but once they do, they will absolutely flood the market with chaos orbs, and as a result, the price of chaos orbs will fall hard. The same thing will happen with jeweler's orbs as well, and consequentially fusings, because of the vendor recipe that turns jeweler's orbs into fusings. And that's from those same bot cheaters picking up 6 socket items that they'll generate while they're doing this. The other thing, though, that makes jeweler's orbs fall even further than chaos orbs do is that jeweler orb demand is more limited. People usually don't 6-link very many items. So that's the reason that you want to get there early, and that you only want to do the chaos recipe while it's super lucrative. Once you get past about 75 chaos to the exalt, it just isn't worth it as much anymore. It takes too much time. You'd be better off running more maps and getting more of just assorted currency drops. You do want to sell any useful uniques that drop, especially those useful uniques that are that are pretty common. Again, this is the Belly of the Beast category. This is items that do something that a lot of characters will want. They're a good stepping stone item, but they're not super rare. You get more of these with this approach than with any other strategy. So the second strategy I want to talk about is pushing to high tier maps early. So here you want to run medium investment maps. So this is Alchemy Orb, Sextants, and Go. You can use low-end Sextants. In fact, you'll probably be best off using low-end Sextants. and you'll be doing these maps at a pace that's somewhat slower than the low tier maps option. You might need to buy boss kill services for Conquerors if you're extremely focused upon clear speed and you just don't have the bossing ability as a result, and you want to be selling your spare maps. There will be a lot of demand on day one of a league for spare maps as people try to fill in their Atlas, and people will pay well for that because the Atlas bonuses in this game are huge. Just that little 1% chance to increase the tier of a map really adds up with the amount that it stacks. It's the difference between under-sustaining maps and over-sustaining maps with so many extras that you can sell heaps of them too. Third strategy, and this one tends to require a bit more familiarity with endgame content, is to generate a boss killer as your first character and buy access to content that other players can't beat early in the league. So for instance, you'll find that there will be people who spike a lucky Shaper map drop very early in the league. They've got their Awakening level up to 4, and they get a Guardian of the Hydra map drop, and they're just not confident that they can beat the Hydra at this point. Their DPS is still 100,000. They don't feel super confident with the mechanics of the fight, and they're just not sure that they can handle the Hydra encounter even given 6 portals to do it. And at this point, what you want to do is buy these maps off these people, run them, source the fragments from them, run the Shaper, sell Dying Suns, sell the other premium uniques. Just be one of the first people selling these uniques when it is a seller's market on them, and even the lesser drops will sell. Additionally, you can run a boss kill service where you rescue other people's failed attempts. So let's say that someone's running their first tier 15 of the league, and they meet Zana in it, and Zana offers them a Cortex. Now, they might go in thinking, oh yeah, I've got plenty of practice with the Cortex, I know the fight really well, I'll go in and I'll do the Cortex. And then they find out that actually they're only bringing down the Synthete's hit points at at a glacial pace. And they keep trying, they make mistakes, they end up having 2 deaths, and then they think, you know what, I'm not going to beat this encounter. I'm two portals down, and I'm on my first... I'm on the first of the 4 different bosses. At that point, they may post in Trade 820 saying, hey, I need some help. And you can say, if you know the Cortex fight really well, and you've got a dedicated boss killer there, you can say, all right, I'll do it, you'll loot, you give me 50 chaos. Or you can say, I'll do it, but we split the loot. Whatever approach you use in terms of whatever reward structure you have, you're offering a mutually beneficial deal there, and as a result, you will find takers. Cirrus is particularly lucrative if you know the fight well enough to do it in dumpster tier gear, and you can just buy Cirrus instances from Trade 820. But you can do this approach of generating a boss killer with Atsuri, with Azaro, with a Shaper, with the Elder, and more. And like I said, I don't think that Azaro is the way to go, but by all means, do it if you want. Next strategy I want to suggest with familiar content is delving. Delve just vomits out low-end currencies. Now, you would have heard earlier that I was talking about the currency orbs that fall off in value very quickly in a league, and I mentioned Chaos Orbs, Regal Orbs, and Jeweler's Orbs among them. Delve drops so many of those currencies it's not funny. And this means that while those currencies are still worth something at the start of a league, when on day 1, Regal Orbs might be a 30th of an Exalt, Chaos Orbs a 50th, and Jeweler's Orbs might be 1/200th of an Exalt. If you run a bunch of delving, you'll get a lot of these, and you can convert them into things that hold value better, like Exalted Orbs, like fragments of a Mirror of Kalandra. So delving a lot is a good option, and it also sets you up for farming premium fossils later in the league, if you're interested in doing a deep delve strategy. This will require you buying Sulfite from other players. Lots of players will sell you a Nico mission early on. Again, this can usually be negotiated in Trade 820. Other masters will be great for currency later in the league as well, but they're more week 2 onward. Nico, on the flip side, is good on day 1. Zana and Elva can be too, but more so for setting up your Atlas and setting up your map pool. The next strategy I want to talk about, and this one really comes online about 6 or 7 hours into a league, and that is to set up a character that is extraordinarily good at running Blighted maps. Blighted maps disgorge an enormous amount of loot, much of which doesn't hold value over a league, but is worth a lot very early on. If you can buy these Blighted maps early, run them while lesser rewards, like all the unique items that they drop, like all the veiled items that they drop, while those are still selling, then you can make a lot of currency from writing Blighted maps. The next option, and this is a big step harder, and that is to set up a character that's extremely good at the Simulacrum. Now this is much harder than Blighted maps and requires quite a bit more capital because each Simulacrum is going to cost you a fair amount of currency to buy. You're also going to need to do a lot of trades. You'll be buying 13 Delirium Splinters off one player, then you'll be buying 52 off another, then you'll be buying 7 off another. So there's a lot of hassle involved, but in terms of the loot rewards that you can get from this, it's pretty hard to beat it, as long as you can actually beat at least 17 or 18 waves. The last options involve crafting for profit, and this involves either buying unlinked meta uniques and 6-socketing them, then attempting to 6-link them, but on a basis that you will not re-roll a 5-link. So what you'll do is, let's say that you decide that the appropriate thing is Carcass Jack. You buy Carcass Jacks when they come up on the market, especially ones with good rolls. Then you'll 6-socket them and quality them first. So quality them to 20, then 6-socket them and smash them with fusing orbs until you hit either a 5-link or a 6-link. Now, according to some of the numbers that people have done, 13 times in 14, you will hit a 5-link first. 1 time in 14, you'll hit a 6-link first. When you hit the 5-link first, you turn around and sell it, and you should recoup all of the currency you spent on fusing orbs. On that 1 time in 14 that you actually succeed in hitting a 6-link, then you've got a jackpot. The problem with this method is that it requires quite a bit of capital, because you're going to get unlucky streaks. On average, it takes about 77 fusing orbs to hit either a 5-link or a 6-link, whichever you hit first. However, it is not uncommon at all to spend 200 fusing orbs and fail to see either a 5-link or a 6-link. In fact, statistically, this should happen about 1 in 9 times. As a result, you can suffer significant losses going this way as well. And this is a risky option. There's other options of crafting for profit too, though there can be things as simple as sourcing higher tier 2-stone rings and the like, and just trying to make starter gear with them. All of these are viable options, but a crafting for profit video would be far too long. In any of these cases, if you go down any of these routes, loot your heists and your blueprints and your contracts and sell them in bulk. Obviously, run a couple of them just so that you get to experience the new content, but our fundamental assumption is that you're mostly focused on old content. So the second divergent path is focusing on heist content. Now, I'm just going to have a quick refresher of item level. Item level is the number that you see on these uniques here. It's available when you have advanced mod descriptions on and you hold Alt while hovering over an item, and it constrains, not so much on unique items, but on rare items, it constrains what mods can roll on those items. At the time that I'm recording this video, which is in the Harvest League, 86 is the magic number to be able to roll all mods. I can't guarantee that will still be the case in Heist, but there's been nothing publicly revealed that implies otherwise. So I want to go through the 7 types of rewards that you can get from Heist content and discuss a little bit about which ones you might want to target. Farm and how you would modify your strategy to do so. So the first one is contracts. These can drop anywhere that maps can drop, and also in lower tier content. They grant access to heists, which have normal Path of Exile loot, nothing unique. Time will tell if these are good, great, or Blair. And these drop in maps. They can be crafted similarly to maps. And like incursions, they build up to a capstone encounter, a grand heist. I kind of suspect we'll be flooded with these contracts from what's been said so far. I think that we'll probably have more of them than we can run, but time will tell. I could be wrong. Next up, we have blueprints. Blueprints grant access to grand heists. So Grand Heists are the capstone encounters. These have both normal Path of Exile loot and also special loot, the 5 other types of rewards we're going to get to. These also appear to be able to be crafted like maps, and your work in the contracts can influence what loot you get. Now, I expect blueprints to be about 12 times rarer than contracts, and this is based upon the precedent set by Incursion League, which a number of Path of Exile's official videos about the Heist League have mentioned. So you can expect about 1 contract drop per zone, possibly more in well-rolled maps, and about 1 blueprint drop per 12 maps, or more frequently, maybe about 1 per Conqueror fight if you're rolling your maps aggressively. It's my understanding, and this is possibly wrong, that each curio display room, and just to give you a sense of that, this is a blueprint here, and a curio display room is one of these reward rooms. So I can just get it to move across there and showcase it. This here is a curio display room on the blueprint, and it has not yet been revealed what loot it's going to have. These curio display rooms, I believe that they have a 20% chance to have each of the following types of rewards in it, and that you can find out which ones are in a room before you get there by running a couple of normal heists for intel. So the first one is alternate quality gems. And if we go and have a quick look at these again, here's Archmage support. You'll see that it has the stats of a normal Archmage support gem, except 39, instead of having 108% added lightning damage based on mana cost, it has 69% lightning damage and 39% as cold damage. So essentially some of the bonus damage is, I hesitate to use the word converted because it is not converted in the strict Path of Exile term, but in the common English usage of the word conversion, not the Path of Exile specific one, 39% of that bonus damage is converted to cold. That's going to benefit some people and not benefit others. But that's an example of an alternate quality gem. Some of these will be rubbish. Some of them will be very niche demand that's very easily filled, and others will be in hot demand for a long time. I don't expect these rewards to be overly item level dependent unless you can get level 21 and 23 quality ones dropping directly. If that's the case though, if you can get them to drop as 21, 23, and they only drop at high item levels, then alternate quality gem farming strategies will want to focus on higher tier blueprints and the like. The second one is replica uniques. Now these are mostly trash or will be oversupplied niche items, but some of them are not. Some of these are really chase items, and I'm expecting that the replica Shroud of the Lightless will be one of the hottest item properties in the new league. These, however, probably have almost no sensitivity to item level. So perhaps there might be a Skyforth knockoff, which is item level 84 plus is all it can drop on, but most of them will be able to drop at any end-game item level. If these end up as the chase reward, then expect fast, low-tier mapping and low-tier heisting to possibly be better than running high-tier ones. The third category of rewards is the experimental bases. These experimental bases are the new base types that are dropping in the heist content. You'll notice here that this Solarine Bow has, as its implicit, adds 111 to 169 fire damage. It also has a pretty mediocre attack speed, although not awful, a pretty mediocre critical strike chance, and an extraordinarily low amount of physical damage. So, these are very item level sensitive. An item level 83 plus impact force propagator, so that's this two-handed mace, will be worth a much more than an item level 72 impact force propagator, which will probably not sell at all if you were to get one of those. So that is something that is extremely item level sensitive. Next up we have the Thieves Trinkets, which is something that people have been sleeping on a bit. These Thieves Trinkets modify the loot that you get from your heists. And I think that every single player that runs more than a couple of heists is going to want to have a Thieves Trinket. So you'll notice here, this I'm assuming is about as good as you can possibly get. We've got the mods 5% chance for Regal Orbs to drop as Exalted Orbs instead in Heists. Now, Regal Orbs are actually pretty rare as drops, so this is not a massive multiplier to the number of Exalted Orb drops you get, but it's a meaningful one. Additionally, there's a 44% chance for double Scarabs from Heist chests, 41% chance for double maps from Heist chests. This is all big information, like big loot multipliers. And as a result, I think that these are really strong and they're going to be really sought after, even though people aren't really talking about them all that much. So don't underestimate these. Imagine how powerful 44% chance for double Scarabs would be in the Simulacrum. And that's only one mod here. We don't know how item level affects these items, but the currency modification ones should be huge. They can't be crafted, and the best ones might have item level requirements. We're going to have to figure that out as we go, but I think that Thieves' Trinkets are something that you should consider seriously chasing, and we're going to have to pay attention to what item level thresholds are very important there. Next up we have the enchanted bases, and these are the most item level sensitive of everything that drops in here. So an example is this Onamangler Penarch here that has 200% increased attribute requirements as a drawback, but physical modifiers have 15% increased effect as a bonus. This is ridiculously powerful, even if it doesn't look it. Ridiculously powerful. Like, this is incredible as a crafting base, and these are going to be extremely item level sensitive. An item level 86 Val Regalia that has a defense enchant, which is 12% to the magnitude of defense rolls and negative 50% to the magnitude of resist rolls, has the potential to be rolled into the best energy shield armor possible in the league. On the flip side, the same item but item level 83, however, has no real benefit over an item level 86 non-enchanted base, except being maybe a little bit easier to roll. So for that reason, enchanted bases, if you want to chase these rewards, you're going to want to be doing the absolute highest possible tier of Grand Heists. A key point on enchanted bases is ask yourself, could someone that is considering doing trying to craft a mirror service item, would they be interested in throwing 500 exalts crafting the base? If the answer is no, then you want to sell the base fast, so you want to undercut the market. If the answer is yes, if you can see a scenario in which they would be willing to if you could see a scenario in which your base is the best one on the market, and therefore they're going to be willing to buy it and then throw an enormous amount of currency at it, then in that case, hold it. Wait until the people that are in that sort of top couple of hundred crafters in the game, wait until they actually have some wealth behind them, then try and sell your expensive base to them. Of course, you could get burnt if the base is more common than you realize, but that's a risk worth taking. So my enchanted base's item level rule of thumb. 83 is the ideal item level for physical enchanted weapons. 86 is the ideal item level for elemental enchanted weapons. 85 or 86 for torso pieces without the defense enchant. 86 for energy shield pieces with the defense enchant. And if chaos damage weapons are viable this league, then 83 is the ideal place for chaos enchanted weapons. Some general notes for interacting with heists. Firstly, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. These strategies are not guaranteed to work. The strategies that do end up working will vomit out wealth, but it is entirely possible that essentially you're taking the more risky route by going with the new content because we don't know its mechanics yet. For that reason, you need to have a fallback plan. If it turns out that heists are harder than you thought and you can't handle them early on, or if the content is as buggy as Delve was on day one, you don't want to rage quit the league and miss the opportunity that day one provides. Instead, what you want to do is drop into one of the familiar content plans while you lick your wounds. Maybe you can't beat some new heist boss, but you're super experienced with Vile Temple, and so your strategy is going to be to do boss carries of Vile Temple for people. Whatever you do though, batch your heists. You don't want to be in a situation where you're changing the content that you're running super regularly. You want to do a whole bunch of heists at once so that you don't have to keep running around the Rogue's Harbor, from the Rogue's Harbor to your hideout, then to a map, then to do a Nico, then to do an Elva temple. What you want to do is run the same content back to back to back to back to back, get into a rhythm of it. It's just much more efficient. So I suggest that you save up at least 10 heists, run them back to back to back to back, unless you have a compelling reason to do otherwise. Secondly, if you intend to run mid or high tier heists, then run a few low tier ones just to learn the ropes. This goes quadruple for hardcore for obvious reasons, but it matters in softcore as well. You'll have plans for dealing with the various dangers in them, but some of them might not work. So for instance, it may turn out that there's widespread knockback resistance amongst the monsters in the heist, or that Decoy Totem just doesn't work very well, likewise that new black hole skill, the Avoid Sphere. These just simply may not work well as crowd control skills. If you've gone in with your plan being, okay, I'm going to fight as few monsters as I can on the way out, and I'm going to distract as many as I can with Decoy Totem, with Void Sphere and the like, but then it turns out that that's a terrible strategy for some reason, you don't want to be in a situation where you only discover that once you've started running your expensive monster level 83 heist that you've been trading for. Instead, you want to discover this while you're running monster level 68 ones and go, okay, that was a cool strategy, you know what, it doesn't work, let's find something else. And then just try a couple of tiers higher, and so on until you've ascertained what you can do. So in terms of economic strategies revolving around heists, the first strategy I've thought up is to blitz low tier heists leading up to grand heists. So rapid grand heists. Here you're favoring gem curio rooms and thieves trinkets curio rooms and replica uniques. You're less interested in the other two, so that's the enchanted bases and the experimented bases, because you don't think they're going to be worth anything at low item level. But there's a lot of potential for gem curio rooms to be excellent, a lot of potential for thieves trinkets to be good as well. The second strategy that I want to point out is that if heists drop a lot of breachstones, now this remains to be seen. Legion did, Delirium did, Blight did not. What you want to do is buy and run level 80 to 81 contracts as much as possible. Breachstones will sell well all league. Early on, the normal, charged and enriched tiers will sell to boss killers that are chasing uniques like Hand of Wisdom in Action or the Ulnatol Axe and the like. But later league, they'll sell to people that are chasing pure XP. Prioritize getting a trinket with +% to breach loot if this exists, and just run as many monster level 80 and 81 heists as you can. In the event that heist drops a lot of maps, farm a bunch, then throw all your lower tier maps into a 5 chaos tab that's not public at once. Then at some point, dedicate 10 minutes to selling maps. The way you'll do this is you turn the tab on, you go and run a couple of run 2 maps while you're portaling out for sales, then you'll drop the tab by a chaos, run a couple of maps and repeat. The reason that you're dropping the entire tab at once is because you are going to get absolutely hammered with requests when your maps fall to be the bottom price, but maps will have different prices within a tier. So this is just the most efficient way that I've found to sell a lot of maps at once. The next option is to source high tier blueprints and low tier contracts. Here my suggestion is to upgrade, that is to unveil the blueprints and list them for sale. I don't know if this is going to work or not, because we don't know the exact mechanics of contracts. But I believe that high tier blueprints, so that's the normal heists, will provide you with all. High tier low tier contracts. Low tier contracts are the normal heists. They should be very easy to run. They will provide you intelligence. They will provide you with rogues markers, and as a result, they should be able to upgrade your higher tier blueprints for you. Higher tier blueprints that you're not confident that you can actually run yourself. The last economic strategy I want to talk about that revolves around heists is pushing to high tier maps as quickly as you can, and then running grand heists, but prioritizing the enchanted bases and the experimental bases at item level 83 and higher. Now this probably means running contracts and both blueprints and contracts that have dropped in tier 16 maps. When you get something that's good but not the best possible drop, sell it fast and undercut. When you get something that's unbeatable, like an item level 86 Vile Regalia with the defenses enchant, hold it until the top couple of hundred crafters have the capital to buy it. While you're doing this, of course, you may get some other rewards as well. but this would be a strategy that I would have in mind if you want to go really jackpot hunting. This is a case of you saying, okay, I recognize that these particular jackpots can drop, and I'm going to do whatever I can to try to chase them down. Anyways, those are my thoughts on League Start economic strategies for the Heist League. If you've got any comments or questions, definitely fire away below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you have a good one.